Good morning, everybody. It's Science Week, and you are most welcome along to day 3 of the Teagasc Festival of Farming and Food. And if it's your first time with us, you're very, very welcome. And for the others, I hope you've enjoyed the last couple of days that we've had here. My name is Damien O'Reilly. I'm your host for the next 60 minutes or so. I do hope you can stay with us for that. This is the latest in a series of webinars taking place this week, which has been organised by Teagasc with the support of Science Foundation Ireland, which is great because it means it's free for everybody to interact. And we want your interaction. We want your questions. We'd like to hear from you. So remember, at the bottom of the page here, you can go to the Q&A section and type in your questions based on what you're going to see over the next hour. And if we don't get back to you on the webinar today, we'll certainly do our best to answer your questions in person. Now, you can also go to Teagasc on their Twitter account, and Fest Farm Food, hashtag Fest Farm Food is the hashtag to use there. But you'll find all the details on teagasc.ie or the Teagasc Twitter account. Now, the title of this morning's webinar is Sustainable Farming from Farm to Fork, a most important issue which consumes us all, from farmers to consumers right now, in a world where we're obviously trying to deal with climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions on farms. How can we do it more sustainably? And particularly, it's an issue facing dairy farmers in Ireland. Milk quotas have gone for the last 5 years or so. Cow numbers have increased. The amount of milk that we're producing has increased, but has it come at a cost to the environment? And what can we do to try and sustain farm incomes, but also sustain the environment and biodiversity and rural communities as well? Well, in the Animal and Grassland Research and Innovation Centre and the Food Innovation Centre and the VISTAMILK SFI Research Centre down in Teagasc in Moore Park, where all of that goes on, there are scientists there, and there are people there that are working all the time to try and find ways of dealing with this issue and to be more sustainable. And we're going to be talking to them. It's a real hub of activity for all things dairy. So everything that goes on in relation to dairy research in Ireland, it's in Moore Park there in Cork that it actually happens. And we are absolutely delighted this morning that we have some of the staff and students along with us, and they will be answering your questions a little bit later on. So do get them to us. Remember, at the Q&A down the bottom, we will have somebody who's going to be going through those, sending them to me, and I will be putting them to our experts. But first of all, we're going to play to you a video from Moore Park. And we filmed this in the last couple of weeks. And it was thanks indeed to some of the super questions that people have sent us in advance of Science Week. And we're going to play this little video to you now. And hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about what's going on in Moore Park.
My name is Deirdre Hennessy. I'm a grassland researcher at Teagasc Moore Park. Grass grows in the soil. At the base of the grass plant, we have roots. These are almost like fingers coming out of the plant into the soil. They're quite thin, some of them as thin as a thread. These roots take up water and nutrients from the soil. The nutrients are the food the plant uses to grow. The plant is green. This is because it contains chlorophyll, and using the chlorophyll, the plant can trap energy from the sun, and through the process of photosynthesis makes this available for plant growth. So grass grows using water and nutrients that are taken up by the roots and with the energy that is made by photosynthesis. A lot of grass grows each year. Just think how often you have to cut the grass in your garden. So on a dairy farm, we can grow about 14 tonnes of dry matter per hectare each year. That is a lot of grass. We know this because every week, all across the country, farmers measure how much grass is on their farm. Then they bring the information into their farm office or on their mobile phone, and they put it into the computer or the phone and into a database. And from this, we can calculate how much grass is grown on farms. Grass grows all year round. Sometimes it grows faster and sometimes it grows slower. In the spring and summer, grass grows fast. This is because there is heat, some water, and lots of sunlight. In the autumn and winter, it grows slower because it is colder, wetter, and also darker. Cows like the taste of grass. They prefer some parts to others. For example, on the grass plant, they really like the leaf. If it's very stemmy, they don't really like that as much. In the field, there are other plants as well as grass. So for example, where the cows are grazing behind me, we have clover as well. And the cows really like clover. When the cows come into a field that has grass and clover, they will eat the clover first. So they have a preference over what part of the sward or the field they like to graze, but they really like grass. Clover looks like big shamrock. It has 3 leaves. Sometimes we might be lucky and find a 4-leaved clover in the field. Clover is from the same family as peas and beans, so it is a legume. Clover is very special to have in our swards. The cows really like it, and when cows eat grass that has some clover in it, they produce more milk than cows that are grazing only grass.
My name is Ellen Fitzpatrick, and I'm a PhD student based here at Teagasc Park. There's a number of different processes that cows go through to turn grass into milk. So a cow has 4 different compartments in its stomach, unlike us who only have one. Cows are called ruminants. So the first compartment of a cow's stomach is called the rumen. When a cow is out in the field grazing grass, she eats all the grass and swallows it half chewed. In the rumen, water and other digestive juices are added to the grass and it begins to break down the grass. This is the first stage of the digestive process. The second part of the cow's stomach is the reticulum. This is where the grass is softened and small wads of grass are formed, which are called cuds. These cuds are where the term "the cow is chewing the cud" comes from. During this process, these cuds are returned to the cow's mouth, where they are chewed between 40 and 60 times every minute. The third part of the stomach is called the omasum, where the cuds are pushed down to the third chamber and the grass is squeezed and pressed and any excess of water is squeezed out of the grass. The final part of the stomach is called the abomasum, and this is where the grass is finally turned into milk. So the grass moves down through the abomasum. The nutrients are absorbed into the bloodstream by the cow. These are the essential nutrients for growth and body function. The other nutrients from the grass goes down through the abomasum and it's directed towards the cow's udder. It's here where there's 4 mammary glands that the cow is able to finally turn the grass into milk. And this is the digestive process which turns grass out in the field into milk, which is a final product. Cows love to snack on corn or concentrate. Corn and concentrate contain loads of energy and vitamins and minerals, which cows really, really love. However, like ourselves, if we eat too much chocolate and sweets when we're not used to it, a cow, if she eats too much corn and concentrates and she's not used to it, her stomach can get quite sick. So this is the reason that the most of a dairy cow's diet is made up of grass and grass silage, and a smaller amount is made up of corn or concentrates.
Hi, my name is Emer Kennedy. I'm a researcher here at Teagasc Park. The amount of grass a cow eats depends on her stage of lactation, it depends on how old she is, how much milk she's producing, and also what size she is. Bigger cows tend to eat more grass, younger cows eat less grass, and cows that are at their peak milk yield production will also eat more grass. Here you can see beside me typically how much grass a cow eats in a day. So it's about 18 kilos of dry matter per cow per day. To understand how long a cow grazes for, we put a piece of equipment called a Rumi watch on her. So you can see 8954 here is wearing a Rumi watch, and that will give us the grazing time, the ruminating time, and the idling time, or the time that she spends doing her different activities during the day. So for example, if we take grazing time, a lot of people go to work from 9 to 5 during the day and work an 8-hour day. Similarly, cows will graze for about 8 hours during the day. At the same time, they have just grazed their grass. They also need to chew it more and digest it more, which is called rumination, and they will spend another 8 hours or so a day doing this. And the final 8 hours during the day, they spend idling or just kind of hanging around, sleeping and playing with their friends. The amount of water a cow drinks depends on her stage of lactation. It depends on the amount of milk she's producing, but also the weather that's there on the day. Like us, if it's a hot day, we tend to drink more water. Cows will also drink more water on a hot day. And again, if they're producing a large volume of milk, so a lot of milk, they're going to drink more water based on that. Typically, a cow would drink between 40 to 60 litres per day. So if we put it in terms of these 2-litre bottles of water, a cow is drinking 20 to 30 bottles of water per day. So quite a lot. The amount of milk a cow produces over a year is about 5,500 litres. Now, if we bring that back to how much she produces in a day, we can see from all these bottles of milk, a cow at peak lactation will yield about 30 litres per day. So that's 15 2-litre bottles of milk. So a lot of milk to drink if you were to drink all the milk that a cow would produce in one day. Over her lifetime, a cow would produce about 30,000 litres of milk. So typically, a cow calves at 2 years of age, and she will have a calf every year for maybe about 5 years. So this gives her 5 years while she's milking, adding up to the 30,000 litres over her lifetime. A cow is milked twice a day in Ireland. In some countries where cows produce a lot more milk than our Irish cows, say for example 10,000 litres a year compared to our cows' average of 5,000 litres per year, they could be milked 3 times a day. Of course, there's also some farms who milk cows once a day, where they want to balance lifestyle and farming at the same time.
My name is Alan Toomey, and I'm an animal geneticist in Teagasc, Moorpark. The main cows used in dairy production in Ireland are Holstein Friesian or Jerseys, with their Holstein Friesian is your more predominant black and white breed, and this breed is very good for milk production. So this is a Holstein Friesian cow to my left. She's a black and white cow and more of a predominant cow that we would see across Ireland. She is much taller and wider in stature than our Jersey cow that we see on my right. I suppose secondly here is our Jersey cow, predominantly known for their fertility and maintenance. They're a smaller cow where they're about 200 kilos lighter than our Holstein Friesian. So here we have a pedigree Jersey cow, and as we can see, she's relatively small in stature and a kind of a brown fawn colour, and as a black face with a white muzzle. And as you can see down through the feet, they're more of a black hoof, different relative to our Holstein Friesian. To collect more information on these cows, we can get DNA information on them. Our brothers and sisters are not always the same, so we're not always the same as our brother or our sister. So even though we have the same mother and father, we don't carry the same genes. So then we want to get DNA information. So we usually take a hair sample from the end of the tail to get the DNA information. This DNA is sent off to the lab, and it looks across the whole genome and looks at different variants. And we can identify different variants that are good for different traits. So if one cow has one variant or one gene, we know that cow is good for milk production. So cows often make a moo sound, and this is a communication, just like us, how we communicate to others. Unfortunately, us humans, and we'd love to know what cows are thinking, but we can't understand these moo sounds. But these moo sounds often refer to their calling their herd mates, or they're informing their herd mates of danger. Cows often also moo when we know they're maybe in pain or hungry, just like normal humans. The prime example would be a baby. So a baby cries, we're always trying to work out what there actually is the issue. And just like that, a cow moves when they have an issue like that.
My name is Ben Lahart. I'm a researcher with VISTAMILK based in Moorpark, and I'm working on methane emissions from grazing dairy cows. Methane is a gas produced by cows as a result of fermentation within their stomach. So cows eat grass, it goes into their stomach or rumen, and bugs in the stomach break that grass down into different energy sources that the cow uses to produce milk. But a byproduct is methane, which it belches out. So 95% of methane is belched out and 5% is excreted through flatulence or farting. So a cow produces 350 grams on average methane a day. So that's actually equivalent of a tin of tomato soup in methane a day. We can measure methane using two different techniques. The first of these is the SF6 technique, which is a backpack that goes on top of the cow, and simultaneously the cow is dosed with a bolus which releases a tracer gas called SF6, and the backpack on top of the cow is capable of picking up this tracer gas, which is used to estimate methane. In Teagasc Moor Park here, we use data on grass quality, animal numbers. We can also potentially use data from the green fields here behind me going forward. And these can help us paint a fairly accurate picture of the environmental footprint of our grazing systems. So we need to reduce methane over the next 10, 20, 30 years to combat climate change. Methane is a greenhouse gas. So, every little bit of methane we can mitigate within Ireland, in the dairy industry, in the agriculture industry as a whole, will have a positive impact on all of our futures going forward.
My name is Nanik, and I'm a researcher in Moor Park Food Research Center. In this video, I will tell a bit story about cow's milk, cheese, and whey. Cow's milk can be consumed as it is because milk is a good source of calcium and vitamin D that are required to have healthy and strong bones. But cow's milk can also be processed further into cheese. When cows eat green grass, 30 liters of the cow's milk they produce will make 3 kilograms of cheese.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Oliver, and I'm a third-year PhD student in Teagasc Moor Park working on milk. The main protein that you find in milk are whey protein and caseins, and they are easily digested by humans. Milk is good for you because it contains proteins, and proteins are very important for muscle growth, and it's very important for kids and elderly to consume proteins to maintain a good health. Milk also contains vitamins such as vitamin B2, vitamin B5, or vitamin B12. And those are good for your system to keep you healthy. Milk is also a source of calcium and phosphorus. And phosphorus and calcium are good for your bones. Milk also contains vitamin D, and vitamin D is very important for our bones and our immune health.
There are a few basic steps to convert milk into cheese. First, milk needs to be acidic by adding bacteria called lactic acid bacteria. What is acidic? Acidic means having low pH, and pH is a scale to express acidity. Other foods like lemon or vinegars are examples of low pH food. The second step is adding a material called rennet that helps the transformation process of liquid milk into solid as curd. So here's an illustration how the milk looks like after the pH was lowered and curd was formed in it. The milk now consists of yellowish liquid and white clumps, which are curds. Using a cloth filter, the remaining liquid is drained away and curd is obtained. Here's how curd looks like after the liquid was drained away. The curd is then placed into cheese mold, pressed, salted, and ripened to be cheese.
Well, that was really fantastic. A great video there. And I hope we learned an awful lot. I hope you watching learned a little bit more about where milk comes from and how it ends up coming from the cow onto our kitchen tables. Now, it's great to have so many of you with us this morning from all over the country. Remember, get your questions in. If you have any questions for our experts, I'm going to introduce our panel shortly. We'll try and put them to them. And I want to say a big hello this morning to all of the students that are watching us from, what school am I going to go to? Miss Queely's 6th class in Clara in County Kilkenny. Good morning. Hope you're enjoying the Science Week. I believe you've been tuned in Monday, Tuesday and today, and I hope you're all learning a lot. So hello to Miss Queely's class there in Cara and County Kilkenny. A big diagwitch to Rong O'Shea in Skull on Choctor Lake in Dublin. Good morning to you all there. Hope you're having a great time this Science Week too. And for the moment as well, we're heading down to Cork. Of course, that's where we're based this morning with Moore Park, the focus. But we also have the students in another Rong O'Shea, in Mr. White's Rong O'Shea in Skull on Athertaig in County Cork. Good morning to all of you. How are you doing today? Are you getting homework tonight? Maybe not. Anyway. Sorry, Mr. White, about that. All right, now to our panel of guests here. First, we have Ellen Fitzpatrick, who is a Walsh Scholar student based at the Grassland Science Department in Moore Park. Ellen is carrying out her research on the effects of diet on milk production, so what the cows are eating, how does that affect the quality of the milk that they actually produce. We also have Katie Shukru, who is a research technologist in animal health and welfare in Moore Park. Also joining us is Kieran Hearn, who is a Walsh Scholar student based in the Grassland Science Department in Moore Park. And Kieran's research is focused on the evaluation of grass varieties and other forage species for use in dairy farming in this country. Last but not least, we have Ben Lahart. You saw him in the video there. He's a postdoctoral researcher working in methane emissions on grazing dairy cows with VISTAMILK, which is also based in Moore Park. Now, Emer Ferguson, who is the Education and Public Engagement Manager for VISTAMILK at the Research Centre there in Moore Park, she's also with us, and Emer is going to be busy looking at your questions, sending them through to me. So get onto the Q&A at the bottom or go to Teagasc on Twitter, and you can use the hashtag Fest Farm Food to put your questions to us. So we'd be delighted to hear from you. And as I said, we're here between now and 12 o'clock. Okay, who am I going to go to first? I think I'm going to go to Ellen. Good morning, Ellen. How are you?
Hi, Damien. How are things?
Very good. And it's kind of raining where I am as well. I think it's raining all over the country.
Yeah, it's pretty wet down here.
I don't know whether the cows mind that or not at this time of the year. What do they, cows eat nuts and they eat grass and they eat silage and they eat hay. Is that their diet? Indeed. Is that what they like to eat, Ellen? And what's best for them?
Yeah, so thanks for your question, Damien. So cows, similar to ourselves, they need a fully balanced nutritional diet. So this means they need their energy, their protein, their fibre, their vitamins, minerals, water. And we're really lucky that here in Ireland, grass is able to provide all of those essential nutrients. So during the summer months when grass is really, really plentiful on the farm, the most of a dairy cow's diet will be made up of grass. Then when we go to the autumn and springtime months, when kind of temperatures are a little bit lower, grass is not growing as quickly, a smaller proportion of a dairy cow's diet will be made up of grass, and we will supplement them with the likes of grass silage, maybe maize silage, concentrate, meal, nuts, as you said, about what they like to eat. And cows would love to eat grass all year round because they really love grass, they really love clover. But then during the winter months, as today is a typical example of, we have cold, we have wet weather, so they generally end up being housed indoors and we're not able to provide enough grass for them. But yeah, cows really, really do love to eat grass.
Now, I have a question in here from Aideen, and I don't know whether you can answer this. If you can't, feel free to say it's somebody else might pick it up later on, but I'm going to put it to you anyway, and you can have a stab at it.
I'll have a go.
Why do cows in some other countries produce more milk per year? Is it down to the breed? And if yes, why don't we adopt this here? So I think maybe that's a breed question more than a diet question. Sorry about that.
I suppose, as Alan was saying in his part of the video there, so we have predominantly Holstein Friesian cows and some Jersey cows here in Ireland. And we operate off a 365-day calving interval and a spring calving system. So that means that every cow that we have on our herd, we want to produce one calf per cow each year. And when they calf down, we want them to go straight out to grass, because spring grass is really, really full of nutrients. It's full of protein, and cows are just really happy to go out onto that grass. So that's the system that suits here in Ireland. So we Our cows calve here to suit the growth curve. So we calve them down so that they go straight out to grass. And as the cows all start to calve down, they end up pretty much on a fully grass-based diet. So that's what works here. Whereas in other countries where grass might not be as plentiful, they generally adapt towards more of an indoor-based system. And that's kind of a system where they feed concentrate and meal and maize silage and grass silage in a big kind of a TMR diet, which is a total mixed ration. And this really, really drives milk production. So it's a more expensive kind of a system compared to what we have here, but it's just what works with their weather, basically, is kind of the...
And is it true, Ellen, what people say, that the reason that the butter that we have in Ireland is it's kind of more yellow compared to maybe in America where it's more white, or in other countries, is because the cows are eating grass?
Yeah, exactly. So grass-based systems of milk production, they're really, really nutritious, and it gives a much, much softer taste. And as you say, the very distinct yellow color off the butter. And a lot of it is to do with the kind of the saturated fats and that kind of a profile that's within the dairy products from grass-based milk. So if you're drinking milk from a grass-based system versus a kind of a high input concentrate, loads of meal fed system, it's going to be much, much higher in omega-3, which is really good for, let's say, when you're going to school to help with your brain function and stuff. And then it has a lower proportion of bad fatty acids. So there's lower amounts of like saturated fat, which kind of we have to watch out to keep kind of minimal in our diet because they're not quite as good for us. But grass-based dairy is really, really good for us. And we're really lucky to have it here in Ireland.
All right. Do stay with us there, Ellen. Big shout out as well to the students that are in Oliver Plunkett's National School in Monkstown. Good morning. Hello. Great to have you along, and I hope you're enjoying what we've showed you so far in relation to dairy production. I know we also have the transition year students in Bettystown, I think, as well. They're tuned in, so hello to you. It's great to have you along. I'm going to move along to Katie Shukru. Katie, good morning to you. How are you?
Good, Damien. How are you?
I have a question in here already for you, and you haven't even started. It's for Katie, and I'll go to it like this. How many steps would a cow do in a day?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a
it's
good
aimed
question.
at you, yeah.
I don't have the answer to that right now, but I will find it and I will get back to them.
Okay, well, whoever sent that question in, we'll try and get back to you. And don't worry, if we ask questions, nobody knows everything, but we'll try and get back to you. But it depends. A cow could be lazy and maybe not walk an awful lot, but and they're busy eating grass as well. Just, Katie, I know you look after the issue of animal welfare. Will you explain to us and to our audience here, what do we mean when we say animal welfare?
Okay, Damien, yeah, so that's a really good question because good animal welfare is really important. So I suppose in its most basic form, when we refer to animal welfare, what we mean is the well-being of the cow or the quality of life that they experience. So are they well fed? Are they happy? Are they healthy? Do they feel safe? Are they able to express their normal, natural behavior? Basically, are they being well cared for? And I suppose on a dairy farm, it's the farmer's responsibility to ensure that their cows experience high standards of animal welfare. And what we have found by and large is that Irish farmers are actually quite good at this.
And what would that include in terms of making sure that there is in the winter time, because probably in the next 6 weeks or maybe less, it depends what part of the country you're in, the cattle and the cows will be coming in off the field. They'll be going into the sheds for the winter. Now, maybe 50 years ago or even less than that, animals were more or less kept out all year round. But now they go in for the winter time because it's too cold to be out and there's not much grass growing. So is that important as well, that when they're indoors that they're comfortable and well looked after?
Absolutely, yes. So if you look at the 5 freedoms of animal welfare, you've got the freedom from hunger and thirst, so making sure they have enough food and water at all times. Freedom from discomfort then is the next one. And you always want to make sure they have a soft, comfortable bed and that they have shelter when they need it. So in Ireland, cows are out of grass for most of the year. And that actually, they have a welfare advantage from that perspective because that is their natural. Cows naturally like to be out grazing in fields. And in Ireland, we have that system where they're outside for most of the year, whereas other countries, they're housed for the whole year. And that's not as natural for cows. But yeah, as you say, when the winter comes, and as Ellen said, we can't grow enough grass to keep them outside during the winter. So then we bring them in, and it is important that we have appropriate facilities for our cows when they come in.
Yeah, and in a lot of sheds now, don't they have soft mats that they can lie down on? And then the straw, obviously, from all the crops during the summer that were grown and harvested back in August and September, the corn and the wheat, or all the types of corn like wheat and barley, the stalks from them, that's the straw. And that's bought by farmers as well as bedding. Is that right, Katie?
Yeah, that's correct. And in terms of when they're inside, ideally you want cows to have at least a cubicle per cow. And I suppose what the recommendation is that you would have 10% extra cubicles in your shed, because cows have different personalities, and you'll have bossy cows and cows that are more shy. And sometimes the shy cows may not want to sit down beside the bossy cows. So that's why you suggest the extra 10%, so that everyone will sit down when they want to sit down.
Right, so cows have personalities like that. There's bossy ones and there's shy ones.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great. Now, the vet is a very important part of farming life as well. And every farmer will have their local vet calling many times a year to check on the animals. How can you tell if a cow is sick?
Okay, so this often goes back to, like I was talking about, their personalities and their behavior. So we all know cows can't talk to us. They can't tell us when they're feeling sick. But similarly to humans, you know, if we're not feeling very well, we're behaving differently and we're showing different signs of illness. So if you take, for example, when you might be sick, you mightn't really feel like going out playing with your friends. You mightn't feel like eating. You might have a snotty nose. You might be coughing. Your breathing might be off. Your poo might be runny. You know, you show those different signs. And farmers, when they know the personalities of their cows, they know their behaviors, and also cows are creatures of habit. They like to routine. They like to do the same thing every day. A farmer will notice these changes in behavior very, very easily. So if you go to your paddock in the morning to bring in your cows, and you've got a girl over in the corner and she's sitting on her own, she's not with her friends, you know that's different because they like to stay with their herd. So this is unusual. So straight away, there's a red flag there, and you're going to ask, okay, what's up with this girl over here? So you're going to go over to her and you're going to look at all these things that I just mentioned that we would notice in ourselves. You know, has she got a snotty nose? Is her breathing off? Like Ellen mentioned in the video, they ruminate, they chew the cud. If she's not doing that, that's not a great sign. You might check her belly. Is it sunken in? If it is, maybe she hasn't eaten in the last 12 hours. All of these things are signs that they will show us, and signs that farmers are familiar with, because we're familiar with the behavior of our cows.
So it's very important, Katie, that farmers look after their animals on many fronts, obviously to make sure the animals are happy and that they're not in pain, of course, but also it's good for the farmer as well, because a happy cow produces good milk and the farmer gets more money then. Isn't that kind of the way it works?
Absolutely. So like there's loads of benefits to having good animal welfare. You know, everybody wants to have cows in their herd that are happy and that are healthy, because you don't want to be seeing sick cows. You don't want a cow to be not happy, or you don't want anybody to be not happy in your home or on your farm. But also the productivity benefits of good animal welfare are, you know, extremely beneficial. If you have a cow who is happy and healthy and is experiencing good welfare, she will produce more milk and she's likely to live for longer. And that's all part of our sustainability focus, to have cows in our herd who live longer and last longer, produce more milk, and have long, happy, healthy lives.
All right, and I have two more questions for you here, Katie, and then I'll move on to Ben. One of them is on that, and I think it comes from the students there in Ballymun who want to know, how long do cows live for? What's the life expectancy of a cow? Does it vary much?
Yeah, so it varies. So I think, was it Emer touched on that in the video? So the average lactation that you'd be aiming for a cow is 5 lactations, and when that cow has 5 lactations, it generally means she's about 7. But you will have some cows in a herd that will live till 13, 14, 15. And you'll have cows in a herd that maybe they won't go on calf for whatever reason, and they'll either go on to a different farm or maybe go to the factory.
Okay, yeah, and they grow old quickly, or quicker maybe than someone else. And the final question is, this is from Lisa, do cows like the rain?
They don't mind the rain, okay? So they don't love loads and loads of rain. If they have plenty of feed, and if they have plenty of feed, they're happy. So like Ellen described in the video, the four chambers in the stomach, they actually create heat in the cow that we can't with our single chamber stomach. So that actually makes cows a lot warmer and a lot more tolerant of colder, wetter weather.
Okay, all right. Well, do stay with us there, Katie. We might have more questions to come to you later on. Big shout out to everybody there in Roscommon CBS. Good morning to you all. Great to have you. Sorry about the weekend, but maybe it's Mayo's year. I don't know. I shouldn't bring up that touchy subject. But anyway, it's great to have everybody from Roscommon tuned in this morning as well. Ben Lahart is with us. Ben, good morning to you.
Morning, Damien. How are you?
I'm very good, and I enjoyed watching you in the video. You really have an important job because we do face a climate crisis in the world, and agriculture accounts for 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions in this country because it is such a big industry. It accounts for so much of the issues in relation to climate. And then when we look at dairy farming, it's increased. And you were talking about methane emissions. The cows, when they eat the grass, they belch out a gas, and that goes into the atmosphere, and it's damaging the atmosphere. So we obviously, if we want to continue farming, which we do, we need farmers to obviously make money. We need the food that farmers and animals produce as well for us. But how can we do it in a more environmentally sustainable way? What is going on at the moment, Ben, in research in terms of trying to make sure that the cows are not producing as much methane? And is it possible to reduce those emission levels?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we can go about a number of different ways. So first of all, as previous speakers have talked of, is grassland management. So by improving grassland management, growing more grass on the farm, farmers will improve sustainability. It'll reduce greenhouse gas emissions, as it'll be reducing the amount of bought-in concentrates into the farm. So basically, the more concentrates a farmer feeds, there's higher emissions brought into the farm because there's emissions associated with producing those concentrates, growing them and transporting them. So that's one area. As well as that, Deirdre talked about the grass plant, and there's stemmy parts and leafy parts of the plant. So the more leafy you get your grass towards, the more digestible the grass is, and the less methane the cows produce as a result of that. That's one way. We can also potentially feed additives. So these are small proportions of different type of feed stuff. So there's different, like garlic and citrus byproducts. There's essential oils. There's seaweeds, and these are the potential to change the way the cow's stomach works and reduce the amount of methane that's produced by the cow. There's a lot of work conducted in different countries throughout the world, and we're starting this now in Ireland in grazing systems. So that has potential to reduce emissions substantially, but we're in the very early days of it. And the final way to do it is through selecting animals or breeding animals to have lower methane emissions. So cows are similar to us, we all have different from our parents. Like some of our taller, faster. So some cows can produce less methane than their parents. So it's all about selecting those cows that can potentially produce less methane, and breeding those cows going forward.
Yeah, so there's lots of different things you're saying that are research that's going on at the moment, and we need to do this very, very quickly, of course, because we have targets that we need to reach by 2030, and the EU in its Farm to Fork initiative. And for the students out there, the EU, they make up an awful lot of the rules which farmers must follow in this country, and they are inspected to make sure that animal welfare is a priority, and many other issues, that the environment is being looked after. There are levels there beyond which you cannot go, or else you'll receive a fine, and that's all governed from Europe. And now they are setting new targets in relation to reducing the amount of fertilizer that we use, encouraging more organic farming, reducing the amount of pesticides that are used as well on the land. So these are all new rules that are going to be coming in, and farmers will have to adhere to improve the environment. But as you said, then in Moore Park, you're looking at research to try and find ways of making sure that a farmer with, let's say, 50 cows can still have those 50 cows in 5 years' time, but that those 50 cows will not be producing as much methane as they are now. And that has prompted a question from Willie, who asks you, Ben, is it better to change the cow's diet or change the breed to reduce emissions?
So it is a good question. So the fastest way we can go about doing it is to change the diet. So by, as I said, improving the quality of the grass by potentially adding in additives. So they will work practically straight away. Whereas breeding will take a small bit more time. So breeding could take another 4 or 5 years. But the thing about breeding is it'll be cumulative. That genetics will always be there. Like it'll be there, you know, it'll be continually added to. So you need the two of them really. Yeah, we will need to breed animals and feed animals to reduce emissions going forward.
And there is some talk that maybe we need to reduce the amount of cows in this country. That's a debate as well. I don't know whether you have an opinion on that.
Yeah,
Ben.
It is an area of much discussion. Like, but there is even discussion about how we actually measure methane at present. So there's a new way in which it's called the GWP star. So basically, it's accounting for the differential in methane emissions, and it's treating it differently to other greenhouse gas emissions. But you know, there's you know, it's very much open for debate. But another thing about Irish production systems is, you know, like as you said, a third of our emissions are produced from the agricultural sector. You know, but we actually have a very efficient production system. Like, so relative to the milk we produce, our emissions are amongst the lowest globally. So, like, you know, Irish products being sold around the world, their carbon footprint relative to the milk is very low. Like, so, you know, it's advantageous also. Like,
yeah, and greenhouse gas emissions also come from, you know, fossil fuels as well.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
Know, industry, transport as well. But a question from Alison: why is methane from cows so bad?
Well, methane basically it's similar to all greenhouse gas emissions. Is that it goes up to the atmosphere, and it essentially just traps heat, radiation coming in. So radiation from the sun comes in, bounces off the earth and comes back up again. And these greenhouse gases trap that heat, so it goes back down again. So that's the reason it causes these greenhouse gas emissions cause global warming. So other emissions in agriculture come from CO2 and nitrous oxide. So they're the other two. And methane accounts for about 60% at present, and carbon dioxide 20%, and nitrous oxide 20% also.
Okay, all right. As I said, it's a very important area that you're working in, and hopefully, as you know, we can find solutions there which benefit all of us in the world into the future. Thanks for that, Ben. Do stay with us. I want to say a big hello to the 4th, 5th, and 6th class in, is it Fuse National School? Fuse National School. Good morning to you all. I hope you're enjoying our webinar here this morning. And I know you have a question here asking which breed of cows produce the most milk. Well, maybe Kieran Hearn might know the answer to that. Hello, Kieran. How are you?
Hi, Damien. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm presuming that the Frisian, the black and white cows, produce the most milk because they seem to be the most prominent breed of cow that we see around the country.
Yeah, and around the world, I suppose, Damien, they're the most prolific breed. So yeah, the Holstein Frisian will be the highest producing cow in terms of litres and in terms of milk solids, I suppose, just because they have that high volume of production. So yeah, that's the answer, I suppose.
Right. Okay. Just another couple of shout outs here. God, we have the whole country tuning in. I hope I'm not making the likes of yourself, Kieran, nervous in terms of all the people that are hanging on your every word. But hello to everybody in Castleblaney College up in Monaghan, to the 5th and 6th class in Donard National School in Wicklow. Good morning to you all down there in Wicklow, and Claren College in Athenryan, County Galway as well. Good morning to you all. It's great to have you all along. So, Kieran, you know, to most of us, grass is grass. It's green. We just see it, and you know, it all looks the same to us. But when it comes to farming and when it comes to growing grass to feed your cows, there are different types of grass, and it's a very, very important, I suppose, issue for a farmer to make sure that the grass that he or she is growing for their cows to eat, that it's of good quality.
Yeah, absolutely, Damien. So there's, like you said, there's many different species and varieties of grass. So a lot of my research here is looking specifically at novel species that are being introduced into the country at the moment, and the major species that's been used in the last, say, 20, 30 and 40 years in Ireland. So that's perennial ryegrass. So when you drive around the country today and you look over the ditch, the chances are what you're looking at is perennial ryegrass and white clover, or maybe just perennial ryegrass. And some of my research is going to look at how we're going to introduce other species into that. So if you introduce other species, as Deirdre said in the video, if you introduce white clover into your grass swards, it can have benefits. So white clover provides benefits of increasing the milk yield of cows because it introduces variety into the diet and increases the protein content of the diet as well. It also fixes nitrogen from the atmosphere, so reduces the need for chemical fertilizer that farmers need to put out. So it's both a cost benefit and an environmental benefit to increase your species content by introducing a clover. Clover is a legume, so there's functional groups. Grasses are obviously one functional group. Legumes are another functional group, and the third one that we're looking at then is herbs as well. So the main herbs that we're looking at here in Moorpark at the moment are chicory and plantain. So we want to see how putting chicory, plantain, and white or red clover into grass swards can change the quality of those swards, change the persistence of those swards, and see if we can improve overall dairy systems by using those species within grass swards.
And you know, where we're situated on the planet, our temperature, we're obviously not down near the equator. We have kind of, you know, a lot of rain and we've sunshine, a nice mix. Are we perfectly placed in Ireland to grow grass?
Yeah.
You know, are we at an advantage compared to other countries around the globe?
Yeah, Ireland has an almost perfect balance of rainfall and sunshine hours basically throughout at least 10 months of the year that we can stay growing grass all through that time period. And what we're promoting in Ireland then is a spring-based dairy system. So the cows calve down in springtime, and then their diet is met exactly by the grass growth curve throughout the year. So the grass grows almost exactly in line with how much the cows need to eat throughout the year. In terms of the weather that we get here in Ireland is just perfect for grass growth. So
yeah, because when you travel around, and any students that are listening, if you go on your holidays to, you know, warmer parts of the world and you're driving through the countryside, you don't see as much grass, you know, and farms in other countries like Italy, they grow more crops than grass as such. I think New Zealand is the only comparable country to Ireland when it comes to grassland pasture for cows. Am I right, Kieran?
Yeah, you would be dead right there, Damien. In New Zealand, even it's slightly warmer. So there's two microclimates in New Zealand as well. So on the North Island of New Zealand, it's slightly warmer in the wintertime, and they actually would very rarely even have a shed on the farm because they can kind of keep growing grass all the year round. So they can have cows outside even in the middle of winter because it doesn't get as cold as it does in Ireland, and they don't have quite the amount of rainfall that we have in Ireland. So they can keep going all year round. Whereas the South Island of New Zealand is a little bit more like Ireland in terms of they do need to put the cows in the shed for the winter because it gets a little bit too cold and it's a little bit too wet to have cows outside. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm conscious there are a lot of young students that are listening to us now around the country, and I believe that we have, for example, third class, and is it Spirard Nave in Collini in Cork. Good morning to all of you there in third class, and they say that they are learning loads this morning. Well, that's the spirit. That's what we want to do, is that everybody leaves, particularly the students in National School, leave this morning's webinar having learned something new. And, you know, maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, particularly outside Dublin, all students that would be in school would have come from a farm, because there were far more farms in Ireland that time than there are now. Whereas a lot of young people now probably have never been on a farm, and maybe their parents were not from a farm, and maybe not even their grandparents are from a farm. So it's important that they actually learn about where food comes from, and I hope that that's what we're actually doing here this morning, Kieran. When we talk about, as I said, we look at grass and we just see it green or whatever, but I'm hearing a phrase, now this is a kind of a very long phrase, multi-species swards. And I'm hearing more and more farmers talking about multi-species swards and why that's important. Will you try and explain to us what multi-species swards are and why farmers are considering this more than they had in the past?
Yeah, so as I was saying before, the multi-species swards it's a catch-all phrase for swards that will now include herbs as well as grasses and legumes that have previously been used in Ireland up to this point. So herbs they encompass a wide range of plant species. Like I said, the ones that we're looking at here mainly are chicory and plantain, but you can also look at Sanfun is another one. Caraway. There's a lot of, basically the thing that characterizes the herb is that it'll have a kind of a deep taproot, and it'll be a very leafy type of plant. I suppose it definitely looks different to a grass. A grass is very slender. It only has a couple of narrow leaves, and it's they generally tend to tiller and grow in bunches, whereas the herbs kind of grow as single plants. They're taprooted and they have big open leaves. So if you think of like salad leaves, they look a bit more like that rather than your average grass. Why are they being used? Well, there's been a lot of research done from, as you said, mentioned previously there in New Zealand, and a lot of it in the UK and Europe as well, in terms of the benefits that these plants can bring to a overall sward. So they can improve the quality of the diet that the cow will eat when she eats a combination of grasses, legumes, and herbs. And it can also increase the amount of nitrogen that's fixed from the atmosphere, because the legume element will bring that in. It also has another benefit where the deep rooting or the deep tap roots improve soil structure and help to bring carbon further down into the soil and increase the carbon store in the soil. As I said, we're researching this at the moment for use in dairy systems. We're not sure yet if it's going to be suitable because of how the dairy cows basically interact with it and how farm management will interact with these new species. They're not going to work the exact same as grass because they're not grass species. So it's very early days. Like I said, it's a buzzword at the moment, but there's a lot of research yet to be done on it.
Okay, Ellen, do you want to come in on that, just on multi-species swards and diet?
I suppose that now Kieran's area will be multi-species swards. I'm more looking into grass clover. So as Deirdre kind of spoke a bit about in the video, so cows kind of have a preference towards clover, and white clover is what we're really looking into here in Moore Park at the moment. And as Deirdre said in the video, white clover is a legume, which means it has these nodes on it which have the ability to fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. So you can fix nitrogen that's naturally occurring, put it into the soil, and that makes it available for plant growth. And then this means that you could potentially reduce the amount of fertilizer in which you're spreading in a chemical farm, which is bad for the environment in terms of the production of fertilizer. And it's also not great for the environment in terms of producing nitrous oxide emissions. And with the inclusion of clover in the sward, we can reduce potentially by 50 or 100 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare per year going out on grass. So there's great savings to be made in terms of that. And you won't actually take a hit in terms of grass production. So you can still grow the same amount of grass by putting out, let's say, 100 kilos or 50 kilos less nitrogen with the inclusion of white clover in the sward. Okay. And then there's also another benefit in terms of cow performance, in that, let's say, a farmer here in Ireland will be paid on the amount of milk solids that are produced by their cows each year. And you can see between 30 and 50 kilograms extra milk solids being produced with the inclusion of white clover in the sward versus there being no white clover in the sward of grass.
Okay, here's Letterfrack National School. I think this might be for you, Katie. They want to know, how can you tell a bossy cow from a shy cow?
Very similar to how you can tell a bossy person from a shy person. Okay. The bossy cow will push her way through everyone. She won't care about anybody's feelings. And the shy cow then will stand back out of the way of everyone and let everybody pass that wants to go past her. So sometimes what you'll see is the heifers that come into the herd, the cows that are having their first calf, they're a bit smaller. It's all new to them. They're into a new herd. They might be a little bit shyer initially, but they'll often find their feet, and cows kind of have a hierarchical herd. So you have the cows who are the leaders, the followers, and the cows, they all have a place in the herd, which is really interesting because not a lot of people know that, and it's such an interesting fact.
Yeah, and isn't it true as well that the bulls and the cows, if they're of really good quality, that their progeny, the calves, will follow on, that they will also take after them. And it's like humans as well. Sometimes if you're a really good footballer, your son or daughter turns out to be a really good footballer as well. And it works like that with animals too, doesn't it, Katie?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's where genetics comes in, and Alan spoke about that in the video.
Right. Okay. One other question for you. Annette is asking, can cows catch COVID?
Oh God, I hope not. I don't think there's been any signs of it so far. So hopefully they're safe.
All right, okay. I'm just going through the questions here. Thank you so much to everybody. We won't get to them all, but we're so happy to have all of these questions. A couple more for Katie. Can cows get sunburned? And that comes in from Wesley College, fifth form ag science.
Actually, really interesting question, because some cows can get sunburn. You'll see it in white cows, their skin is paler and they can be more susceptible. Now that doesn't mean that all white cows can get sunburned, but some of them can.
Okay, and Bridgetown College, third year. Katie, you're earning your money here this morning because they're coming in for you. Are cows happier in the shed?
I don't think so. I think cows are happier outside. So I'll give you an example, right? In a farm where there was some cubicles inside and some cubicles outside, so there was no roof over some of the cubicles. And even on some rainy days that I thought were miserable and cold, you would see some cows queuing for the cubicles that were outside. Now that doesn't mean that they always want to be outside. You know, if you've got really severe weather and, you know, it's cold and the grass quality, you know, when the weather is wet, the dry matter of the grass goes down. So it's not as nutritious for them.
Yeah, they're similar to us. Don't we all prefer to be outside than stuck inside all the time? All right, Ben, just coming back to, I think Mike had a question. How many cows are there in Ireland? I might have a stab at that. I think there's about 1.1 million dairy cows and something like 800,000 beef cows. So they would be the kind of, you have the black and white cows you see are generally the cows that are producing milk. And then the beef animals are the other brown and big white sort of animals. Am I right about that, Ben? Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Around 1.1, 1.2 up till 2015, and we've increased to about 1.5 million. Since
1.5 now. Okay, so there's been a big increase.
Yes,
and the amount of beef cows then as well are lower than that.
It's fairly similar, if not slightly decreased, only a small amount.
And then all the other animals in between, like the calves. So there's about 7 million cattle in Ireland at any one time. 7 million. At any one time. Okay, so there's more cattle in Ireland than there are humans.
Yeah,
true. Right. Okay. We have another one here. This comes in from Celine. It's for you, Ben. Do other animals produce similar amounts of methane, such as horses and pigs?
Pigs produce a small amount of methane. I don't know the amount. It's very, very small now. But
okay.
So it's all methane within cattle. Then is related for them primarily related to the intake of the animal. So a dairy cow will produce the most methane, a beef cow will produce intermediate then, and then a sheep then will produce the lowest amount of methane because they're eating less grass.
All right, okay. Yeah. All right, well, listen, unfortunately, time catches up with us as usual. Really fascinating listening to you all. You've been absolutely fantastic. And to everybody who's sent in the questions, particularly those students from the schools around the country, thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this webinar today. And isn't this part of science as well and technology, how we can communicate live like this all the time? I just want to say finally, before we head off today, and we have a video to play for you as well. Hi, a big hello from the 6th class in Gaelscoil the Hida in Fermoy. Lots of mammies and daddies from Moore Park have children in that school. So it's great to have all the students. Sorry if we didn't get a shout out to everybody today, but thank you so much. We know you're there. We hope you've learned an awful lot. Tomorrow we're going back to the future with presenter Jonathan McRae with an event all about the oldest and newest food technologies with, again, scientists from Teagasc in Moore Park. And finally on Friday, Jonathan will be here as well to present the Taste of the Future with scientists from Teagasc in Ashtown Food Research Centre in Dublin. So the next 2 days between 11 and 12 as part of Teagasc's Science Week, Festival of Farming and Food. We have 2 more of these webinars and I do hope you can join us. And remember, it's free to register. That's thanks to the Science Foundation of Ireland and Teagasc as well. Now, we will be sending you an email as well for your feedback. So be honest, if you've enjoyed it, we'd love to get your feedback because it means if we do something like this again, we can make it a bit better based on what you think of what we've actually done. Now, all details in relation to registering and so on can be found on the Teagasc website, which is teagasc.ie. And you can watch this back and you can watch all of our events this week back on the Teagasc YouTube channel. It's there under the Science Week playlist. Now, before we go, we're finishing up with a short video highlighting some of the amazing career pathways and opportunities in Irish dairy research. So for all the students out there, who knows, you could be like Katie and Ellen and Ben and Kieran there in a few years' time, studying agricultural science, working with animals and animal welfare and milk production in somewhere like Moore Park, because Teagasc need young people coming through all the time to help them with their research. So that this could be a job for you if you've enjoyed today. Who knows, maybe in the future you could be doing what our panelists are doing at the moment and have been explaining to us as well. So we're going to finish, as I said, now with just a little short video. And as I said, thank you to all our panelists. Thank you for the questions. Thank you to all the organisers. We will chat to you tomorrow at 11 o'clock in the same time, same place as well. But here we go. We're going to leave you now with this video. Have a great Science Week.
Hi, my name is Stephen McAuliffe. After completing my Leaving Cert, I went on to study agricultural science in UCD. Following that, I completed a PhD in Teagasc Moore Park, and I'm now a full-time dairy farmer.
My name is Deirdre Kennedy. I studied food science and technology in University of Limerick. After my PhD in molecular microbiology, I came to work at the Food Chemistry and Technology Department in Teagasc Moore Park. I now work here as a microstructure technologist running the National Food Imaging Centre.
Hi, my name is Shauna and my primary degree is in science education, and now I'm a researcher at Teagasc. My research looks at assessing bull semen in the lab and related back to fertility.
Hi, my name is Katie Shukru. When I left secondary school, I went to study business and accounting in CIT. I then went on to qualify as a chartered accountant, working in industry for a number of years. I decided to make a career change and headed to New Zealand to try out dairy farming. Since then, I've worked on large-scale dairy farms in New Zealand and Ireland, while also working as an AI technician. I now work as a research technologist in animal health and welfare in Teagasc Moore Park.
My name is Katie Stasmore and I'm from New Zealand. When I left high school, I wanted to become a vet, which I studied for a year. I decided to change and do a Bachelor of Science with Agriculture and Animal Science. After completing my degree, I went on and did farming for a year. However, I wanted to change, therefore I moved to Ireland. Here I'm doing a research assistant job working with methane, and now I'm looking at furthering my educational opportunities with Moore Park.
My name is Conor Hogan. I did a degree in dairy business in UCD, and now I'm in my third year researching labour productivity on dairy farms in Ireland.
Hi, I'm Donald Berry, and I did a degree in agricultural science in University College Dublin. After that, I went on and did my PhD in collaboration with Wageningen University, the Netherlands, in animal genetics. I now work as a geneticist in Teagasc, and I'm the director of the VISTAMILK Centre.